The Fallout TV show is here, ladies and gentlemen, and it's been causing quite a stir online. By the time I release this video, I figured that many of you will have seen it, or you refuse to watch it on principle. Either way, I will be spoiling the entire story. When compared to the game's lore, some things have been altered. If you know nothing about the Fallout universe and you watch this show, you will most likely enjoy it.
I have only played Fallout a little bit. I played Fallout 3 for PlayStation 3.
I've only seen my friend play it for an hour.
They did a really nice job as far as I'm concerned.
The writing in this was so good.
This is not false advertisement. This channel name is 100% accurate.
Man, I love this show.
If you do know something about the Fallout franchise, you've played the games, but you're not really a lore buff, you will still enjoy the show.
My entry to the franchise was, I think, with most people, which is actually Fallout 3. And then I've played through all of them, and then I gone back and played 1 and 2 as well. That exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah. I'll leave my opinion of the show for the end of the video. I want to try and be as objective as I can, but there will be some memes.
We can buy a spot in the vault.
One of the good vaults.
That's supposed to me.
Haha, Gary!
You saved us, but you'll kill us. You're a hero. And you have to leave.
You may have asked yourself, how did Lucy know to call them raiders and not say bandits, marauders, or rapscallions?
Raiders.
Well, to call back to the games, and since we find out that she's left the vault before as an infant, certain terms may have stuck with her. A similar thing happens when she encounters Maximus in T-60 powered armor.
I don't mean to interrupt, but was that a knight?
Maximus introduces himself as Knight Titus. She's completely ignorant of the Brotherhood of Steel, but she probably read about knights in fairy tales. Not a big deal. What really stuck out to me was when Lucy's Pip-Boy showed that the raider she married has absorbed over 800 rads. Now in real life, this individual would be experiencing nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, weakness, and would probably be running a fever. But let's assume the show was using video game mechanics in this instance. This graph shows big hits, the stats associated with combat. Strength, endurance, and agility are all severely compromised. Your average raider would be about as dangerous as a Barbie Dreamhouse playset. So in my opinion, Lucy should have taken this guy pretty easily. But this is Bethesda Fallout, so this is how it worked in Fallout 3. Not as bad, but still pretty big debuffs. So as a healthy individual, I still think she can take him easier than she did. People have suggested that she spec'd heavily into charisma and speech, but I disagree. She may have the good-natured perk, but she never convinces anyone of anything, the fusion core being the one exception. But she couldn't even convince Maximus to go balls deep.
You want to have sex?
Yes, I would like that very much.
But anyway, what if it's Fallout 4? No stat debuffs. Instead, you lose 1% of every 10 rads absorbed. This man was rocking 20% of his overall health pool as a raider. This amount of blood loss would have killed him. Lucy, on the other hand, is stabbed, so of course she finds herself a stim pack. But later on we see that she still has to staple her wound shut, which was not the case for, well, let's just call him dog meat. Maybe it works differently on dogs, or on people designated as NPCs.
A huge steaming ball of foreshadowing.
There's a question that's been looming, an elephant in the room if you will, regarding these two characters. And it's very understandable why no one wants to ask this question, because frankly, it can get you cancelled. But I'll try to discuss this as carefully as I can. Given the state of the world, resources can be difficult to come by. In the vaults, they have to be as efficient as they can. Lucy even mentions that at one time, there was a near famine. So my question for this gentleman here is, has he ever been investigated for potential theft and or hoarding of resources? But then there's this gentleman of substantial girth on the surface. Maybe we can chalk it up to both of them coming down with a bad case of some sort of thyroid issue. On the flip side, however, Lucy's brother Norm is very clearly rocking this trait right here. He's below average in strength, charisma, and possibly endurance. However, he has above average perception and intelligence. Maybe a little bit above average in agility too, but average luck.
The world has no use for emotionally unstable techno-fetishists. Please, put them out of my misery.
Now, throughout the course of history, the Brotherhood of Steel have had many different chains of hierarchy, but they all had some sort of initiate class. This class can become a scribe or a knight. The knight can elevate to a paladin, who might become an elder. The show seems to have simplified this and changed some things around. The lowest rank that we see is called aspirant. The aspirant aspires to become a squire, and the squire can become a knight. It seems that paladins no longer exist, neither do scribes. I think elders were renamed to clerics, although the leader is listed as elder cleric. I'm assuming lancers are still a thing, because someone has to fly the vertibirds.
What kind of model is that? It's the T-60.
Indeed it is. The T-60 is the only model of power armor that we get to see in the show, and I'm going to assume that it's due to budgetary reasons. It's been confirmed that this is indeed the Pridwin. This doesn't exactly confirm the ending of Fallout 4, but it does narrow things down. It has to be either a Brotherhood or Minutemen ending, because they wouldn't leave the Institute still at large, and both the Institute and Railroad quest lines force you to destroy the Pridwin. Now the Brotherhood of Steel have been described in a few ways, but they end up being basically the same thing in the end.
They're a terrorist group, basically. Militant, quasi-religious fanatics, obsessed with hoarding pre-war technology.
We only protect people from themselves, and only in the sense that we don't let them have the really good pre-war toys.
The worst impulses of mankind, concentrated in one insane backward tribe.
We're talking about a coterie of bulging-eyed fanatics who think all pre-war technology belongs to them.
We haven't grown or adapted, and now we're stuck in a hole, not carrying out our mission.
They like to pretty up their mission with trappings of chivalry. But the truth is they're hoarders. They hoard technology. It's been 200 years, and they still have the mentality of scavengers. They say they're preserving these technologies, but for what? They have no vision. They offer no future. They're a dead end.
So yes, quasi-religious, techno-fetishistic, terrorist, scavenger hoarders. In the show, they devolved even further down this road. The robes look more like robes worn by the children of the cathedral. They burn incense now as if they're Adeptus Mechanicus from Warhammer 40k. The squires are branded with the symbol of their knights. The squires refer to the knights as lords.
We need numbers, new recruits.
What does the Codex say?
A bunch of closed-minded bullshit.
We do not help them or let them in.
The West Coast Brotherhood does not recruit outside members. Until now, it seems. Perhaps the East Coast branch has gained enough power to significantly influence even the founding branch.
Our mission comes from the highest clerics in the Commonwealth.
The highest ranking of these individuals from the Commonwealth flew over here to find a man from a certain organization. An organization that's currently based where exactly? Closer to the Commonwealth? When he's running away, there's snow.
The Enclave's real?
Boy, do I have a story for you. The entire Enclave built up and invaded from this giant oil rig that was eventually blown up, and it was all over. Except it wasn't, because they sent a massive force to the East Coast. But we blew up their central command center, both of them, and it was all over. Except it wasn't, because there were still some remnants, and by remnants, I mean 4 old men and 1 old woman. They weren't really that big of a concern, so it was all over. Except it wasn't, because even though I've never played Fallout 76, they show up there too. There was a secret bunker, but don't worry, they didn't even last 10 years. They all died, and it's just an AI that's left. So it's all over. Except it wasn't, because now the TV show reintroduces them, and it seems they still have an entire compound above ground conducting canine-related research. But the escaped scientist took the key for unlimited power with him, so there's no way they'll last, and this is the last we'll see of them. Except that it isn't, because Bethesda is bringing them back into the Fallout 4 storyline through the next-gen update. The Enclave is forever, ladies and gentlemen. We thought we got away from them in Fallout 4, but no. Anyone ever seen that movie It Follows? It's basically that. We had sex with someone they were following back in Fallout 2, and it's been on our ass ever since. We get to see a laser rifle at the Enclave compound though. We got to see laser rifles in hand, but we never see them used. The Brotherhood of Steel tend to prefer using high-tech weaponry, but they only ever use ballistic weapons, including that godforsaken Bethesda assault rifle. I guess the lack of lasers has to do with budgetary concerns again. You'd need really good CGI and practical effects to get the lasers to look right. They're not like blasters from Star Wars. They don't shoot bolts. It's one long stream of light. For film, bullets are just more practical.
What if it makes the moon up on high, more than just a light in the sky?
So the suit can generate this level of force. Now, I'm no physics expert, but I suspect that if that's the case, then this punch would have taken this Yao Guai's head clean off. It may have also punched a hole straight through our ghoul cowboy.
You guys use pre-war pre-war technology, to find and collect pre-war technology, to make sure no one has pre-war technology?
I mean, yeah.
They're a terrorist group, basically.
The T-60 helmet and arms have received some additions, including wrist-mounted jets. This is only my opinion, but they don't appear as if they can generate the necessary propulsion. You could say, well, it's Fallout, the tech is basically magic, and the Brotherhood may have made some advancements in the last 10 years. But there's a problem with that, unless this is another change to the Brotherhood. You see, there used to be exactly one of their members who thought that they shouldn't just hoard technology, they should improve upon them. His name was Elijah. The Brotherhood ordered his assassination, and he went completely insane. The power armor helmets have always had some voice modulation, but never to this degree. It seems that they had to make this change because otherwise the story they wrote wouldn't have worked. Thaddeus would have heard Maximus's voice and known it was him immediately.
The future. Survival anywhere. We surpass the norms.
Well, Seth, I got good news and bad news. According to Bethesda's canon, ghouls can't survive without any food or water, despite requiring food and water if they are part of your settlement. I'm forced to determine that they still consume food and drink for psychological reasons.
Sometimes, fella's gotta eat a fella. Ass jerky don't make itself.
It seems that ghouls can stave off becoming feral as long as they ingest some sort of serum.
You don't get these. You turn into one of those? That how it works?
This is new. So far, we don't know how it works, where it comes from, or whether or not every ghoul needs it. Maybe only some ghouls are susceptible to becoming feral, therefore only they need it. That's the only way to explain why the kid in the fridge and his parents are fine. If you're thinking about that one ghoul magician for Fallout 4 Nuka World, he had no idea this thing existed. Also, it does seem to be true that ghouls have gotten better and better looking as the franchise progressed, but being a leading man and all, I suppose Walton Goggins might have protested making him too ugly.
And if it was, did he know about it? And if he didn't, who did? And where the hell was I?
The exact location of Shady Sands has been modified before, but never this much. It seems to now be built right in the middle of the Boneyard, which is downtown Los Angeles. It used to be that the Boneyard itself became part of the NCR, with Adytum, or New Adytum, being the main state and being a part of the NCR Senate. But there was also the followers of the Apocalypse, the Gunrunners, and the little thing called the Children of the Cathedral. Shady Sands was founded in 2142. The Cathedral was founded in 2156. A nuclear blast destroyed it as well. Now beneath the Cathedral was a vault. Inside this vault, there was this.
Join.
Die.
Join.
Die.
The Master and his super mutant army were very interested in kidnapping humans so they could dip them into vats of FEV and create more super mutants, especially Vault Dwellers, because they tended to react more favorably to it. I'm not sure if this part is still canon, but Shady Sands was originally founded by former occupants of Vault 15. I guess the Master decided to just let them be and ignore Vaults 4, 32, and 33. Maybe they just couldn't get in, despite Vault 4 having 2 entrances, and the Master was also highly intelligent. I'm sure they must have found a couple of Pip-Boys in Vault 12, but oh well. When Lucy left the vault, she was in Santa Monica. Where did she go? If they had kept the Shady Sands where it was, then Lucy may have had to go through places like the Hub and Junktown. I guess complicating things because the Hub is or was part of the NCR, and what happened to the NCR is still kind of up in the air. So let's explore that.
The NCR is a loose conglomerate of individuals looking out for themselves. It's lost virtue. No one cares about the collective, the greater good. It's not built to last.
This scene caused people to feel a whole range of emotions: excitement, nostalgia, confusion, outrage, pride, and more. The blackboard shows a brief timeline of the history of Shady Sands, the conclusion of which caused heavy debate within the community. When I first saw it, I didn't quite know what to make of it. There were 2 possibilities. Either Shady Sands fell because it was bombed, or Shady Sands somehow fell and was eventually bombed as well. In my mind, when I hear that something has fallen, I tend to assume finality. Because when a person is fallen, it means that they fell. They already hit the ground. But if a person is falling, then the fall hasn't happened yet. So I was kind of inclined to go with the first option, because earlier the lady says this.
My mother was a courier. I was 11 and traveled with her to Philly. 3 days walk from home and we could still feel the heat from the blast.
So she knows. Therefore they all know the year the bomb went off. And yet it wasn't written down. so I remained unsure. I was going to go on a whole spiel about how the people on one side were taking things at face value and maybe were just looking for something to be upset about, while the people on the other side were trying to rationalize the situations to make things fit. But there's no point arguing about it anymore, because our Lord and Savior Todd Howard himself did an interview with IGN where he basically said, "I can understand how it can be confusing in some places, but I can assure you that Shady Sands wasn't nuked until after Fallout New Vegas." Why wasn't the date written down? Well, one theory I had was that someone was busy drawing this up but got interrupted just before they could write down the date that the bomb went off, because they had to go do their nude worship thing, which we'll get to. Also, Birdie, the lady, says that she was 11 when Shady Sands got nuked. With Fallout New Vegas taking place in 2281, she's 26 years old at most, but the actress playing her is 47. For 47, she's still a good-looking lady, don't get me wrong. But it checks out if you consider the stress of living in the wasteland. One thing I've noticed online is that a few of the people who interpreted the graph as Mr. Howard said now seem to feel awfully vindicated. Some remarked that it is incomprehensible to them how anyone could have ever possibly have seen it any other way. But let's go back to this fall of Shady Sands. I'm guessing that by fall, they actually mean the beginning or the perceived beginning of some sort of economic or societal downturn, because seeing as Aaron Kimball became president of the NCR in 2273 and won re-election in 2278, I think that it's possible that it's a subjective political statement. You know how with every election, there's always a group of people who say things like, if this person wins, the country is doomed and/or I'm moving to a different country. That's what this might be. The Mojave campaign was raging, there was no end in sight, the government kept diverting more and more tax money and resources to it, and despite all that, everyone knew that Kimball was going to stay president. During wartime, people tend to rally behind the leader. If they weren't vaporized, then once the nuke came, the NCR people must have felt their own sense of vindication. You see, I knew something like this was going to happen under Kimball, even though as the audience, we know that the two were unrelated.
Get ready, gentlemen, because hell's a coming.
But seriously though, this really caught me off guard. So Moldaver is pre-war. How did she survive? I don't know. The show never specified. Is this something they'll address in season 2? I don't know if anyone's going to care because she's a bit dead. But after the Great War, she became what appears to be some sort of administrator or government official at Shady Sands, which is all well and good, but I'm not quite sure about the cult thing. I mean, how? Why? Even on a production level for the show and the story, why? Not sure it was necessary. But lore-wise, let's say this. They call her the Flame Mother, right? She survived the bombs, took charge, and kept things together for the people. Even if that's true, worshipping her is a massive leap. But even so, she didn't keep things together because it seems the NCR completely fell apart. And she didn't keep the people together. Many are here in Vault 4. I don't know if they do the same thing at Griffith Observatory, but we don't get to see any of it.
You never heard of the New California Republic? Well, if it makes you feel any better, it didn't work out.
Maximus was talking about the NCR in its entirety, but maybe that's just his perspective because his hometown got nuked. However, the Brotherhood came to investigate, but the NCR never did? Also, the Brotherhood took Maximus with them. When exactly did the West Coast Brotherhood start recruiting outsiders? New Vegas was 2281 and they were closed then. They are playing really tightly with the timeline. My guess is that all the NCR states seceded. They lost the Mojave campaign. There was no confidence in Aaron Kimball's administration, so they didn't even bother electing a new president, investigating, or randomly blaming someone like the Brotherhood of Steel. They just said, we don't care. Maybe Moldaver tried to explain that it was Vault-Tec and they called her crazy. Moldaver's grand plan could have been to get Cold Fusion up and running and use it to reunite the former NCR states. Then they wouldn't need Hoover Dam anymore. But Moldaver's dead, so
The world may never know.
Kaizad had a point when he says that the NCR is a loose conglomerate of individuals. The Enclave lost their equivalent of a capital and they're still chugging along.
You've just had a heavy session of electroshock therapy. All those childhood traumas magically wiped away, along with most of your personality.
Frederick Sinclair. Obviously, he looks different from the way he was portrayed in the Dead Money DLC of Fallout New Vegas, but he also appears to be directly involved with Big Mountain. From what we can gather from the games, he only did business with them. The Big Empty developed the technology for his casino, the Sierra Madre. Now, I suppose you could say that he now looks more like someone who would have issues attracting women like Vera Keys. No offense.
Guy was a slouch in the dame department, had to pick up the slack somehow.
Who is that?
Okay, so let me see if I understand this right. The Vault's purpose was to conduct a series of calculated experiments. The data gained would be used for successful space travel and interstellar colonization, although this was never explicitly stated in any of the games.
The Vaults were part of the Great Plan. Actually, they worked almost exactly the way they were supposed to. You might call it a social experiment on a grand scale. The Vaults were set up to test humanity. Some had not enough food synthesizers. Others had only men in them. Yet others were designed to open after only 6 months. They each had a unique set of circumstances designed to test the occupants.
The show takes it in a different direction. The Vault experiments weren't all conducted for a singular Vault-Tec and/or Enclave goal. Instead, they were done as a competition of sorts. They allowed the corporations to just come up with seemingly random ideas so they can see which ones would survive these hardships and thus become stronger due to the struggle. But Vault-Tec held on to a certain number of vaults for their own ideas as well. They had control vaults like Vault 8, which became Vault City with a Garden of Eden creation kit. Emil Paglialalazazazazazaz seems to consider Fallout Tactics as canon, which means they also had Vault 0. Bud Askins from the show was given 3 interconnected vaults for his Bud's idea to create a race of super managers. So Barb has the brilliant idea that a global nuclear war would be a magnificent business opportunity. But there's ongoing peace talks. So how can we guarantee near human extinction?
By dropping the bomb ourselves.
Oh shit! Now she could have been the one who suggested the idea, but didn't get to decide when and where. Or the governments of the world beat them to it anyway. Tim Kaine states that his idea was to have China drop the bombs first due to the USA's research into the forced evolutionary virus, but this never became official canon. If that shadowy figure means that Barb was in cahoots with the Enclave and she joined them on that oil platform, then she's very, very dead. But now the Ghoul is looking for his family, thinking both his ex-wife and his daughter are still alive. So the showrunners could either move them, which is probably what they'll do, or someone like Cannibal Johnson is still alive and can tell him what happened.
The big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip.
Now this has people worried, because first it was Shady Sands and the NCR, and now what we see in the credits seems to show a pretty haggard looking New Vegas, making people think that the trail of destruction continues, making people think that they are going out of their way to destroy everything that the original Fallout developers have created. Except for the Enclave, it seems they really want to keep them alive. At first I thought that the decrepit looking buildings were part of Freeside, but the images in the end credits depict the Strip, and it looks like quite the fight broke out here. I mean, there's tank traps on the road, ruined cars, and broken down Securitrons. I speculated about an NCR defeat in the Mojave earlier, leaving 3 possibilities: House, Independent, or Legion victory. I wouldn't put money on a Legion victory, because if that were the case, they would have continued their conquest west. Even if Caesar died and Linnaeus took over, they wouldn't have fractured this early. We would have seen some signs or heard mention of them, I think. I'm also not seeing the House winning this one, because that would mean that the Securitrons are upgraded. One of those upgrades are automatic repairs. We wouldn't be seeing broken down Securitrons. But even if a war broke out between House and the NCR, and some of the bots were still lost, House wouldn't leave Vegas in this state. That just leaves an independent Vegas.
The courier, with the aid of Yes Man, drove both the Legion and the NCR from Hoover Dam, securing New Vegas's independence from both factions. With Mr. House out of the picture, the remaining Securitrons on the Strip were hard-pressed to keep order. Anarchy ruled the streets. When the fires died, New Vegas remained, assuming its position as an independent power in the Mojave.
After the courier ensured New Vegas remained free, the followers found that independent Vegas was even more unstable and violent than before. Old Mormon Fort became excessively burdened by the influx of patients, struggling to provide even the most basic of services.
So it seems that an independent Vegas can bring the necessary chaos for this kind of destruction, but it doesn't account for the tank traps. Regardless, I think this ending is the closest fit, but we won't find out until we get more information from Season 2. As for Season 1, if you're a longtime fan of Fallout and you're a lore buff, clearly you can still enjoy the show. Even Tim Kaine says he's a fan. but nitpicking it could drive you insane. I wouldn't go so far as to call myself a lore buff, but I do tend to know more than the average player. That being said, if I were to give Season 1 a score, I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Got you, nigga!
It is a very well produced show. It looks good, the sets are great, the props and designs are accurate, it's well acted, good cinematography. The CGI is high quality for the most part. The sound and music was on point. They got the tone of the franchise down, and I must say that the dark humor was captured much better than Bethesda has ever been able to. So yeah, overall a really good show. They did change some stuff around. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Now we'll wait and see what they cook up with Season 2.